It has been said that the truth will set you free. That, of course, leads me to reflect on what the truth is freeing me from. I live in the so-called free world. I have the freedom to dress as I want, freedom of speech, freedom of rights, live where I want. I live in the part of the world where there's so much freedom. And yet there's also a sense inside of heaviness, of being repressed. Or limited in some way. I am seeking still liberation, freedom. Externally, it seems very free, but inside, that deepest freedom can elude me. Freedom of the mind. The freedom to simply be peaceful, no matter what, unconditionally, independent of what is going on around me. This is the bondage of souls. To be freed into that experience of being at peace, always. Truth has the power to free me in this way. Because the truth is, that which I am seeking is actually who I am. I've been looking in all the wrong places. I am a being of peace. My true nature, eternal nature, is peace. The key that truth provides is simply to remind me, as if there is an inner wisdom within each of us that has become dormant, waiting to be awakened. Reminding me, I'm a spiritual being. Nothing physical can ever fulfill what I seek. The freedom that truth provides is revealing that nothing, no attachment can ever prevail, is an illusion. Attachments have become my jail. They lead to expectations, desires, anger, conflict, even hate, pushing me further into bondage, further away from peace. remembering I am eternal and everything around me here is temporal. The hands of my mind begin to let go. So I am free to hold those eternal truths, free to have a deep experience of being a soul, the lightness, the liberation, the contentment of coming home to the self. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti, and welcome to Interview with the Raj Yogi. Tonight's session is The Truth Will Set You Free. So this is actually a very well-known quote, at least in the West. So may actually even be for some like a platitude. And so for some also grappling with hope, just searching for truth. What do you feel in terms of Raj Yoga? Your thoughts are about this, just this phrase before we go into depths.
Well, there seems to be this battle that Raj Yoga unleashes between our pure desire for freedom, but also the fear of what we will have to do in order to follow that path. Not because the path of freedom is frightening or bad, it's completely liberating, but we're very attached, if you will, to bondage. And there's so many examples we've quoted in the past about this, so I don't know if we need to go into it, but the one that always comes to my mind, of course, is emancipation. There's no doubt about it. There were many, many challenges. It's understandable. But, this concept of why would anyone want to remain a slave? An emancipation is declared, but it's declared in a climate where there's going to be a lot of opposition. Even though the government has declared it, the citizens are not all united. And so it was very frightening, actually, to be free. So some actually chose to remain a slave. And again, that fear of what's involved in freedom. So, yeah, this definitely happens with Raj Yoga, is that we've developed almost a comfort with the uncomfortable zone, and how to address that or work with that.
There's this word that's used in science, and maybe some have heard it in different ways, inertia, in terms of the resistance to change that's used in physics. But I was thinking about that when you're talking about what is required to be able to become free. So what are your thoughts in terms of that, that wall, that obstacle, when freedom is something that everyone wants, to be able to overcome it without violence?
Well, we're a bit back to our favorite topic that Nora likes very much, timing.
I do like it.
So you can't push anyone to do anything that they are not ready to do. And sometimes that happens, that this is so good for you, and we push and they're just not ready. Again, just sort of work on the self, reassure everyone it's okay on the other side. But timing is critical in terms of is it my time for that formula to flip to the other side, where the freedom of the fear of staying stuck and the fear of letting go, that formula has to shift. And that's distinct for each person.
But what if one is actually actively trying to? So it is their timing, they're seeking, but it seems like maybe there's certain seeds that need to be planted, maybe something about that foundation, certain missing ingredients. Could one not be proactive if they're actively seeking?
Something
actively practicing.
Right. So there's something interesting about really anything in life, that I can be practicing or believe I'm practicing something, but I'm not experiencing the results. And so I jump ship and don't realize that the ship is fine, but I actually haven't. So today it talked about honesty. I haven't actually been following the instructions properly to be able to experience the results. And so that may have to go along for a while before I realize, oh my gosh, I'm going in the wrong direction. So a bit like our little cases today. So I always find that really, really interesting. You know, we've invested so much. I can think of so many examples, invested so much in building a structure. We think we're going in the right direction, but we haven't quite followed the instructions properly. So the other day, I think you were there, maybe not, but was talking, we even have this in the study, this line, that if someone is finding this path painful, then liberate them from it. It's as if they need a reset. There's nothing wrong with the path, but I may not be following it as it was laid out. So I'm not experiencing the benefit or attainment. So it's actually very laborious and painful. So don't keep pushing the wrong way. It's like I need a reset. So let go and come back at a different time. And there might be a different understanding, insight, awareness. But that effort that had been done previously is not wasted. That needed to happen at that time, and it will somehow contribute to the next time one approaches the path.
At the beginning, when you were sharing about this aspect of truth, and in a sense that even we hear the word honest, and it's like, I'd like to be honest with you,
I'd actually
But-
honest with you, the camera and that one is really far. That's okay. Carry on.
We're going to carry on.
Yeah.
Sometimes people hear truth and it makes them feel heavy.
Mm.
And when you share, it's supposed to be liberating.
Mm.
So, is there perhaps a journey of even what that means? And it's not an intellectual thing. To just because for some, they think of, healing or moving forward is digging into dark secrets of the past. Like there's just a lot of other ideas. That's just one example. But these ideas that are actually intercepting.
So we have this saying of preparing the soil to plant the seed. And actually, a lot of preparing the soil is clarification or re-education, unlearning, if you will. So very often, as we saw in the beginning of this organization, there was really just a lot of love, a lot of love. So it's kind of preparing the soil. It's indicating that truth is not heavy. It's actually got a deep connection to love. So a real re-education needs to happen because, the idea that truth or conscience or heart, that they should be heavy and therefore falsehood is light is a challenge. So yes, did I come with ideas that again aren't really accurate, but I'm very attached to? And can there be a bit of re-educate? I say a huge part of this study is clarification. We don't come as blank slates. It's very sweet because we have this beautiful project here in Calgary where we live. It's called the BUMP Project, Beltline Urban Mural Project. And I don't know why, I really love it. It's giving a voice to First Nations artists. It's lovely. Or Indigenous of various cultures. So I looked out the window the other day at work, looked out the studio window, and I saw them in a big crane preparing the wall to paint. They're just painting it white. And this is very common when you're preparing whatever canvas, whether it's a brick wall or stretched on a frame. You prepare the canvas, you create a blank slate. You do not want to paint on something that's already got stuff going on. It's going to be messy. So first, they're creating a canvas. So we saw that, this is part of what the white clothing represents. We saw that at the beginning of this. First, it's just sort of clean and how love can melt a lot of things. So everyone's saying, oh, I don't like this white wall. I said, I love it. Something wonderful is going. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I love that feeling that they're preparing the canvas, creating a blank slate.
This feels very connected to your example of emancipation, because I was thinking, and I know you were using that as one of the examples, but just to become free became very frightening. Mm-hmm. But I was thinking about self-worth, if there is a connection in terms of being able to take in the truth and just a big stumbling block of self-worth.
I always used to sort of reflect the best I could on someone like, we've talked about 42 in baseball, but even just a little closer to home, my own Lak'ik mother, who had to come up through the southern states during very difficult times. What was going on there that was not affected at all by, I'm sure there was discrimination. And I always felt that they had a beautiful form of self-respect that's actually very humble. Any other kind, we call it impure pride, it won't work. So, because it'd be so sensitive. So really beautiful, fluid, pure self-respect that allowed them to be able to deal with change and transformation in an old context, which is what our journey is about creating the new amidst the old, it does require a very specific, pure sense of self being awakened.
Is it possible that sense of self being awakened can maybe even be incognito to oneself? Like one is so pulled, but there's a lot of resistance at the same time. Because when you had shared, when you first learned about Raja Yoga, and that thought that came in your mind the moment you heard that your soul, that this has everything to do with self-respect, I assumed that it wasn't all fine and dandy, all the days as you continued since that recognition.
No, if anything else, it made ego or lack of self-respect very, very unhappy and hostile. So it sort of launched the battle royale. But, and again, it was just the time to recognize this is the liberation, the freedom from arrogance, which is causing so much pain for souls. This is it. And realizing this is the only thing that is it. It's very difficult after that to pretend I didn't know, to just walk away, even seeing what, and again, the example we have of 42, the baseball player who was the first Afro-American in Major League Baseball, the amount up to death threats to his family, the amount of opposition, but he recognized, he was so in love with the objective that he persevered through very challenging times. What did he experience? I think that's the interesting thing. I don't think we can project from our own place what he experienced, because his head was in a different place than my head might be in. I think he really grasped or recognized that this is so critical to the dignity of every human soul, not just Afro-Americans, every human soul, critical, his heart. So having recognized that, I think he felt about things very differently.
So we might not know what was going on in his head,
Right.
but you might know what was going on in your head
Underneath.
about your journey. And I was wondering if perhaps maybe there's this thread of that recognition that continued to pull you in the midst of all of that resistance, because you even said that you knew that this was going to be a terrifying feat to overcome, but something pulled you. So maybe not, oh my goodness, this is, all about self-respect and, constantly the way that the inner obstacles work. Sometimes it gets murky, sometimes it's doubt. What were you feeling?
I know for myself, it's so important to keep revising what we call aim and objective. What am I here for? Which was that self-reclaiming self-respect. And what is the method to do it? Well, it's to be aware of yourself as a spiritual being, to not depend on any external validation whatsoever. So those two things seemed as critical as life. So this morning we had, the moths surrendered to the flame. They're dying. But this idea, it's as important as life itself. That, and constantly revising it, because this is my main weapon, it needs to be untouchable by the enemy. This absolute loyalty to that aim and objective. I am completely committed to that aim and objective because, again, of the recognition. So keep revising it, keep it very much alive. It should be an anchor, a safe place. I've always, I remember in things like Lord of the Rings, crazy things would be going on. And then there was always some place that was a safe haven. And you just want them to get to the safe haven because they were untouchable there. They have to go back out. But for that moment, they could regroup, get it together, and then they're ready. So we need that safe haven of a very vibrant recognition of the aim and objective.
I feel that's a lovely note to end off of in terms of that connecting to one's sense of self-respect, being very clear of what Raja Yoga is about again and again. So we'll have a little reflection.
Whatever one's religion or lack thereof, beliefs, ethics, morals, there seems to be common ground in the belief that life is sacred. We may not always operate that way in day to day, but there's that feeling when we sit quietly and reflect that life is so sacred. And this understanding, recognition that I am life itself. I, the living being, am of immeasurable value simply by existing. And then to discover beneath that quality of life also resides within me, not the body. The body is not responsible for love, peace, compassion. It's responsible for moving muscles and bones, getting organs to work. But that quality of life, what makes everything worthwhile, what creates life, it all resides within me. How important it is regularly, at least daily, to remember and honor and celebrate the wonder of the self, and therefore the wonder of every other human being. That's simply what spirituality is. That simply is God's vision for every soul, that we remember the wonder of the self, how precious each of us is, one of a kind. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, Sister Binny. That we will need a series on this one. All right. I better start writing some more questions down. And if you have any, please let us know. So just a warm reminder, we have the Public Rakhi program this Friday, August 25th, 6:30 to 8:30. The registration is popping at the seams, and we hope to increase the numbers of those who can actually register. So if you have not registered and you wish to, feel free to check on the center's website, calgary.brahmakumaris.ca, or if you look on events, Eventbrite, you should type in BK Calgary. And if you cannot register, come anyways. And we hope to have it online on YouTube if everything goes well as well, and archived for those who want to watch later. And so lots of other drop-in sessions online and on site. So we just recommend you to visit the website for those details. Thank you for joining. Om Shanti.